Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first edition of the official Watch Dogs podcast. I'm your host, Nick Schmidt, the community developer for Watch Dogs, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with the sound team for Watch Dogs. I don't want to lose any more time with this intro, so I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves, and we'll get this started.
All right, well, I'm Olivier, I'm the audio director on the project, and yes, we do have members of the sound team here, but we have a big team.
We don't have the whole team here. Yeah, we have three people from the sound team, but yes, thank you. And we also have
Lisa. I'm a voice designer, one of the voice designers on the team.
right.
And I'm David. I'm the audio artist and also co-composer.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. And we also have a very special guest with us, brand new on the Watch Dogs ComDev team, Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Belair, and I'm the new ComDev on Watch Dogs. So.
Great. Well, thanks for all of you. Thanks to all of you for being here. We'll start this off right now, talking about Watch Dogs. Of course, Watch Dogs is going to be a title. It's going to be available on all consoles, but also on the next generation consoles. And I'd like to start this off by asking you guys, what's different on next gen? What did you guys have to do different for Watch Dogs and for next gen altogether?
What's been very exciting about Watch Dogs is that we've been able to go much further than we would have gone before, and we've been able to put assets in the game that sometimes have been too big for current gen, or put variations in there that sometimes we couldn't afford before. So the next generations allow us to be much more precise in our sound design and go much further than we would expect, or we would have expected before in a few years back. As an example of that, we have much more ambiances than we would have before, and we've been we've done some very, very delicate work and delicate placement of ambiances throughout the city to be sure we're always able to showcase each and every aspect of Chicago properly and make sure that a back alley sounds like a back alley and maybe a street corner is not the same as a different street corner. So we've been able to assemble all these materials and not necessarily care about limitation and just care about how we want to represent the world. And the world of Watch Dogs is a very serious world. It's a dark world as well. And so we've been able to concentrate on that and not so much concentrate on how are we going to fit into memory, how are we going to handle the streaming of all these things. We've been able to concentrate on the creative vision, which is a nice and refreshing take on doing sound design.
Well, thanks a lot. And I don't know if you've mentioned this, but Watch Dogs, as you probably all know, is taking place in Chicago. A question that's been asked so many times on our forums, on Twitter and everything is, did you guys record in Chicago? Did you actually go there? Did you get sound from people on the street? What happened? What did you do? So I think Lisa.
Yes, we have absolutely recorded in Chicago. We have been there numerous times. I think Olivier was the first one to go there for a week recording actors. This year alone, we've been there about four or five times now, just the audio team, I mean. And the process was that, we really wanted to get that Chicago flavor, as we've been saying. We wanted to hear Chicago. We wanted to be true to it. So we've cast all of our civilians, all of our enemies. All of those actors are Chicago-based actors. Of course, we don't know the accent super well, except for the super fancy stubbers and all that, which is obviously a caricature, and we don't want to, we don't want to have to bring that to the game. We want it to be realistic. So it was great being in a studio in Chicago, being at CRC, the Chicago Recording Company. We had a crew there who could help us to identify, like, okay, is this over the top? Is this going to work? Is it the right accent? Is he hitting it? Is she hitting it? So it's been really helpful to be in Chicago with actual Chicago actors and with a gang who knows Chicago so well.
And it's a setting we haven't been able to explore so often before Chicago, and we've really taken it to heart to be sure that we take this opportunity to really showcase the city and everything that's cool about it. So Lisa mentioned I went there first, and I actually went with the artists the first time they went. That was about 3 years ago, and when they were scouting, taking pictures of everything. And I went with my microphones and recorded a lot of ambiances that actually made their way into the game.
Oh, really?
Because we really want to be authentic to Chicago, and the best way to stay true, I guess, is to take the source material directly from there. And it also helps us set the table and be sure all our ambiances blend well together, is to actually record them from there. So we recorded hours upon hours of material from Chicago, surround ambiances, night, day, all that stuff.
So you actually stood on a street corner and recorded the sound of the city, more or less? Or?
Several street corner parks.
We
I
even
rode
caught
the
an actual live mugging on tape, remember?
Is that going to be in the game?
Not that one, not that particular one. We did catch a lot of stuff. I did ride the L train for a while just to catch the ambience properly. It was really important for us to be true to Chicago, to be faithful to it. The voices are a good part of that, but we've also been very careful into making sure that we take advantage of this opportunity. Chicago is a beautiful city, and we want to be sure, and we've learned to love it as we've been there a few times, and as we play around with it every day in our engine. So we wanted to be sure that we capture that, because there's a lot of people in Chicago, and we want to be sure they're happy with what they hear.
So I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. When you're going to be standing underneath the train in Chicago in the game, you're actually hearing the sound from the train in Chicago?
Well, we do, yeah. Basically, yeah. Short answer, yeah.
But
we do a lot of editing to the source files once we get them. So we may have blended that with other sources as well to be sure that they fit the gameplay parameters we need to fit to work with. That our trains have certain behaviors that sometimes we weren't just able to capture live on the street. So we always made sure that if we can't get the exact same thing, we use the recordings as reference to build what's missing.
That's amazing. All right, so talking about Chicago again, the city of Chicago. How do you approach the ambience system in the game? How do you make a believable ambience for a city like Chicago in a game?
Well, as we said before, we did a lot of field recording first to get the references and to get a lot of material to put in there. But also, once you have that, it's a matter of making sure it's very flexible to what's going on. And since we have a living city, we want to be sure our ambiences reflect that. So, we have day and night cycles that change the ambience. We also have weather reactive ambience. So the wind, the rain, everything is reactive to how the weather behaves in the game. And our friend Kevin Vale has been working really hard on the wind system to be sure it's always fluctuating according to the wind speed.
Because it is the windy city, right?
Well, that's an interesting question. We had this debate with the CRC people about what that actually meant. And it seems no one in Chicago has the same answer about what the windy city mean.
One of them suggested that it was the Windy City because the politicians were full of hot air, dating back to the 20s or something. However, I have stood at the base of the Willis Tower and was able to lean entirely my whole weight and be held up by the wind. So, I'm just saying.
There's some definite good wind there. So we've developed a very cool wind technology to support wind gusts, different types of winds happening all around you. So it's all those subtle elements that all come together that really sell the ambience. On top of that, you also have the living city as well. That will add that extra layer to make sure that even though we make it sound like it's alive with weather, with day, night, with different sounds. Of course, you got the harbor, you got the industrial area. You got all these things, but you also have the civilians, and they add, I would say, the most significant impact on that ambience is the people walking around talking on their cell phone, the people chatting on the corner of the street, but mostly, I think, it's how they react to you and what you're doing in that city that would have the most impact. And that's where the voice designers have done a great job with the game designers and the animators to be sure that that city is reactive to what the player's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned before, we went to Chicago because we wanted to get that Chicago flavor, the voice, the sound of Chicago. But the other important thing is to have all the bank of stimuli, just all the different reactions that that all the civilians can have to you as a player, and it just brings the city to life that way. You have all these different reactions. Anything you choose to do. If you bump into somebody, they're going to react. Whether you choose to run them over with your car, they're going to react in different ways to that too.
Really? You get reactions for that? How do you record someone reacting from being hit by a car?
Well, that's a good question. That's actually exactly my job.
How do you get in character for someone that's being hit by a car?
Well, you just ask them, well, remember the last time you were hit by a car? Just do that.
Just do that.
Interesting story. We joke about that. We have all these bunch of reactions. As the voice designers, when we go to the sessions in Chicago, we have our script writers there with us, and they kind of direct the actors through all the lines they have to say. So, okay, in this situation, you're saying this for that reason. And we're kind of there to make sure, they're saying it at the right volume. Mm-hmm. But the other thing we have to do is direct the grunts people have. So if they get shot, how are they getting shot? Are their throat being spraying blood out of their throats, or what's happening? So it was interesting because we had one of our actors who came in, and he's actually a cop. And
experience.
So I was like, yeah. I go, that's kind of cool. So he gets into the booth, and I say, great, okay. So for this batch of onos, we'll call them onos, onomatopoeia, grunts, however you want to call it. For this batch here, you're getting shot. So just react like you've been shot. You've been shot, right? And you go, yeah, I've been shot. I'm like, well, that's never happened before. So it was kind of funny because that never happened to me before. But you direct them through. There's lots of tricks you have as voice designers to get the actors to react the way you want, and to have their correct vocalizations and correct types of pains. For example, when we get hit by a car in our game, if you get hurt and you survive, you might be pissed off. So bring some anger into it versus the pain of death and suffering. So it's fun because I get to kind of bring the actors through this. Okay, now you're dying in this way. Now you're being injured and maimed in that way. So it's really fun.
It's fun also because we keep those for last, because once they're through with all that screaming, usually, and all those several ways they get to die in the game, their voice is pretty shot, so we keep it for last.
It's extremely taxing, yeah. Very difficult on them. But before they get to all the dying and onos and all that, though, they do have all those stimuli we were talking about before. Yep. So every civilian in our game has about 60 different reactions. Is it higher than that?
At last count, I thought it was well over 100 for each.
For the civilians?
Oh, yes.
I thought that was the enemies.
Well, and variations for each, right? That's the whole point of the living cities, because the smallest thing will break the immersion. So if I go to the civilian and I run into him and he goes, "Hey, jerk, don't push into me," and he says that the next time, then I'm going to break the game. It's got, you don't want to hear the same thing twice, and you want to be sure there's variations. If I run into him or if I just slightly bump into him, there's variations for that as well. So the more variations we get, the deeper we go. Of course, the more expensive it gets for our producer. We'll let him manage that. But also, it also creates a much truer simulation. And that's the whole trick why we get so many people, so many variations, and so many different stimuli, is because we want to be sure that we have a very wide variety.
Yeah, to give you an idea, every civilian has 400 or 500 different lines with all these different variations. So we're in studio with them for good many hours recording all these different reactions. Yeah. So if you multiply that by, we have 38 civilians plus all the extra little characters, all our enemy characters as well. So you've got a wide variety of people who with a wide variety of lines, so that, as Olivier said, you don't break the immersion of
that's
hearing
not counting all the main characters as well.
Of course, yeah.
It's insane.
I was just wondering, because you said you had a guy in who said, "Yes, I have been shot." Did he bring something different to the performance immediately than someone who had not been shot?
No, I mean, I think with actors, I mean, the important thing is that they need tools to be able to kind of vocalize these things. I think when these things happen to you, don't think about how you're going to react. So I don't think a life experience brings, to being shot anyway, necessarily brings a whole lot more to it. What I found interesting about his reaction is that it was quieter than anyone else would have done. Okay, do what you did when you reacted. Probably, you swore and you to yourself, or maybe not. I mean, you probably didn't have a huge reaction. So if anything, it would probably be less dramatic than what we need for the game. For a lot of our reactions, we need to kind of fake, not so much fake. I mean, to bring the life to the city, you have to be able to hear the people. And you have to be able to understand their reactions. So a lot of the times we find ourselves in sessions saying, okay, this line is to yourself. You might be muttering, but react more loudly. I mean, we have to be able to hear it and feel them. So some of the reactions are more fake in that sense.
That's a good point, though, because that's another thing Next Gen brings to us, is that it used to be that before, in previous generation, you had to be a bit more theatrical about it, and now that the facial and the animation have expanded and become so closer to reality, we're able to bring a bit more subtlety to the acting, and it's really helped us reach a whole wider range of acting, and we're really happy about it. It really allows us that new level of seriousness in the acting that we're doing. So that's another cool thing about the next gen and what it allows us to do.
Particularly in cinematics, of course, where you can have a full performance, as Olivier said, have your actors suited up in mocap and full facial camera and recording audio. So everything that you capture the full performance in one shot. So it definitely is more subtle and just more realistic for that.
So do you guys use the recording from the actual mocap session, or do you re-record it?
No, we use the actual audio from the sessions as much as possible.
So that
sometimes
adds another layer of realism. All right.
I mean, sometimes we have to do some ADR to correct little things. The mocap suits are covered in Velcro, so that can be hell for us.
I know, I wore one.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did. It's
exciting.
very flattering.
It's not forgiving, the mocap suit.
Nope, it's
We
not.
actually got some of our. We got Pavel, one of our sound designers, in the suit as well.
Really?
Yeah, because we're gonna have a few street performers as well in the city, just to bring more life to it.
Okay, and he juggles?
No, he's a very multi-instrument talented musician. So we got him to play guitar, play the drums, everything. So he's gonna be he's around the city playing music. So yeah,
I'm very jealous of that, by the way.
you want to be in the game.
I could be like the tap dancer on the street. Does that happen ever? I could do that.
I've seen tap dancers
Just
in
saying.
cities once or twice.
Why not?
You know what? Actually, cross that. I don't think it is. I think we took I think we took the music track from Pavel's performances, but we had got some actual actors to do the mocap. Yeah, well, that's not such a good story now, is it?
Yeah.
Ooh.
They do have pictures of him in the suit.
But still, you guys get to do all that and then locked in a little room.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's a team effort, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of testing and trying out of stuff as well. I mean, when it comes to building the game, like there's a lot of steps that it involves. So like those early steps of getting to suit up Pavel to like the seriousness now, where it's like, okay, I'm going to Chicago on Sunday again, and it's getting all the final lines done. So it's a long process.
How long have you guys been doing the sound for Watch Dogs so far?
Dave and I have been at it, and Pavel, since the end of our last gig, which was Splinter Cell Conviction. We worked on the multiplayer portion of the game, so we've been at it since then. I guess it's a good 3.5 years. 3 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
No, it's been a while, so that's why there's so much sound in there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
gonna be a
thick.
massive-
It's thick with sounds, and we can't wait to show it all. But now the team is built up. Obviously, we're now 11 in Montreal. And we got people in Paris, Newcastle, Bucharest, all working in the game, and we wouldn't be able to do it all of it without them. So we've got a very good team, and we're really happy about that.
Great. Hear that, people? A lot of people working on it, and this game is going to sound amazing. I just feel it. All right, so let's move on to music. There's a question that we've seen a lot on the forums and on Facebook, on Twitter, and everything. People want to know what they can expect for music in the game, in the actual game. Now we've seen so far the kind of mini game where you can hack into the music, and we've heard the music in the trailers. Now, what can we expect having seen and heard that?
Well, actually, from the moment I started working on the project with Olivier and Pavel, we were talking about music before even the first line of dialogue was recorded, and we got some pitches from a few composers, like big names in the game industry. And in the end, we ended up choosing someone who had more film experience, because Watch Dogs is more of a cinematic feeling game. It's got a more serious tone. And the composer we chose, again, we didn't want to go for the epic orchestral or something that was too video gamey. So we got Brian Reitzel, who has done Lost in Translation, 30 Days of Night. He's also been a music supervisor for every of Sofia Coppola's films.
Wow.
And he programs all the keyboards for that French group Air for their tours and everything. So he's got quite an impressive
He's
background.
got some experience.
Yeah, and he used to be the drummer for Red Cross as well,
Oh,
back
really?
in the 80s. So yeah, he's done everything. So he's a very interesting character. And but again, as we were talking about the whole next gen thing earlier, we don't have the same limitations that we used to have in terms of game audio. So we could put a lot more music in this game. So that ended up being a bit of a problem that we solved by having like 2 people on the team like compose additional music for the game. So that's myself and Pavel Maksimichev,
Okay.
who's also done a lot of work, actually most of the work on the cars, but he's a great musician, and we all kind of complete each other in terms of style. But from the very get-go, I felt that Watch Dogs should have a lot of glitches, a lot of modern electronic sounds in it, without being too techno, without being like something that's like dancey music or anything like that, but to just feel like hacking, like you would get that vibe, and not go too orchestral, but still maintain like a classy quality. So everything mixing together is quite interesting, because you've got Brian Ratzel's very moody stuff. Pavel kind of goes for a bit more like of a 70s police film vibe.
All right.
And I'll sort of blend the orchestral with very experimental techno aspects. And so far it's been going great. Like everything complements, like every part like complement each other. And as far as the rest of the music, there's a lot of licensed music in the game as well, and I think you should talk to Olivier about that, because he's got a lot to say on this.
Well, again, we've discussed before how we wanted to seize the opportunity to work with everything that's Chicago related.
Yes.
And once we started approaching the licensing for the music, and that's also a big part of how we bring the city alive, is how do we create those elements in the city that feel like it's a real city. And adding music and diegetic music, as we call it, in the world really does give you that extra dimension to every place. So we've been very careful in selecting stuff that we think is interesting, but more to the point, as I said, we're concentrating on showcasing a lot of Chicago artists, because we think it's a very interesting city, and it has such a huge and very interesting musical background, and it's such a huge, diverse music scene. It was super easy for us to identify a lot of bands we wanted to get into our game. We're still developing that list right now, but I think people would be surprised to know how many bands come from Chicago. Off the top of my head, you got the Smashing Pumpkins from Chicago, the Lawrence Arms. Every genre is well represented. My personal favorite from that list, the Vindictives, are from Chicago as well. So we're really having a lot of fun building a licensed track playlist that's going to be in the game, that's going to be placed in the world in the game, playing and adding to the environment. But the player will also be able to collect those music tracks.
See, that's the thing that we saw in the trailer, where you kind of hack into and change the music or something.
Exactly. There's a big gameplay element to it as well. So we wanted to showcase the scene and also include a lot of big names as well. We're not limiting ourselves to Chicago, but we do make an extra effort to showcase the music from the city. And since there's a bit of a collecting element to it, since we want to let people collect all these sounds, people are able to go around and listen to the music, and I actually use their software to identify what's playing and get those tracks onto their own playlists in the game, so they'll be able to, as they drive around, decide to launch which track they want to hear.
Cool. So building that playlist, was it part of your several trips to Chicago to just go see the bands live? And
well, we've worked very hard here with the people at UB Music and the sound studio here at Ubisoft, and the labels also have helped us. But there's a lot of stuff I would call small personal favorites that I've put in there that I've managed to sneak in. So we'll see how many I can get in by the end of the game. But there's a lot of cool stuff, and I'm really excited about that playlist.
can't wait to hear that. I think, Kim, you had a question for...
Yeah, I had a question more about like not ambient music, but in the idea of a living city, when things have to be so reactive and like voices have to be reactive and sounds, do you also find that the music as well has to be reactive? Is it when something happens, how do you make sure that when the player chooses to do something, that music kind of goes along with it without seeming too jarring a change?
Well, that's a good question, because in this game we tried something different again that we hadn't really done before, which was to create tracks that could be arranged live during gameplay. Because in previous projects we would do like layers that would crossfade, and in this project we decided to create like different sections in the gameplay music, so that if a chase starts, like it'll just switch to a different loop, and everything is just based on like thematic loops that can just be interchanged.
That's awesome. So it doesn't sound like it's suddenly cutting to something else.
No, that's the whole point.
That's the whole point. And also, we don't always have music. Silence is important as well. Sometimes the city is the music. It's nice to not just always support everything, and so there's variety, because this is open world, and if things start repeating over and over, oh yeah, there we go, we're in Chase, now we're gonna have this music. This happens a lot with open world games that you spend like 50-60 hours in, and it does, we were thinking about this right from the beginning, that we should try to have as much variety in the music, the diegetic stuff, the soundtrack, and also sometimes not have music when there's like hundreds of guns like being shot at the same time, or big crashing. Sometimes that's all the music you need, because a lot of films
do the melody.
Yeah, it's a bullet ballet, because like
trademark that.
But yeah, no, because there's a lot of films nowadays, like serious tone films, where you have, whenever there's something really serious, violent, and dark happening, there's no music to support it, because you're already feeling the realism of this situation.
Yeah, it's not going to support it anymore.
And sometimes just layering out music on top will remove some of that seriousness to it, some of the realness we find. So we try to be very careful about where we put it in, but when we do put it in, we try to be sure that it's very tailor-made for that specific moment.
Yeah.
What Dave was saying before is that usually in previous games we tend to create one big system that's going to handle all different scenarios, right? But what we found was that was a bit limiting and a bit predictable for what we were doing. So what we have in Watch Dogs is a multitude of different systems. So let's say in a game like a Splinter Cell, you would have a system that would detect when you're in stealth, when you're in fight mode, and when you're running away from enemies, and then adjust the music according to that. But what we're doing, we're taking the idea of a system like that, but applying it to different missions. So let's say in a given mission, you have to race through the city, then maybe we're going to use checkpoints throughout the city to determine how the music progresses, to build up the intensity of that chase. And maybe then if it's another mission, you have to eliminate, let's say, a given number of bad guys, then we're going to use a number of bad guys left to modulate the music according to what Dave said before. So we try to do that so we can stick much closer to what's happening in that specific mission, so that the player, when we decide to support those missions with music, so the player feels that the music is actually supporting what's going on right now, and not too generic. It's a bit more work, but it's really worth it. From the experiments we've done and all the missions we've been building so far, it really works.
And I was thinking, that the music in the game is used a lot for mood, or for generating like adrenaline, rather than just to underscore like scenes that, like a chase scene or a fight scene. So this is it. So if you're driving and you've got this, intense music going on, it's more about the adrenaline. It's not just about like following the action in that case. And of course, the cinematics. And I'm doing a lot of the cinematics, most of the dark stuff, and and that's a bit more traditional in terms of approach. But again, it does pose interesting challenges as to how we're gonna, go from the cinematics into gameplay, and how that stuff is gonna gel together. So sometimes it's, we decide if we have music during gameplay or not. So I guess that's it.
That's great. David, you just mentioned driving, and I know that's a topic that's very dear to our fans. The cars. The cars in the game. There's a few of them. We've already mentioned that there's going to be plenty of cars in the game, but I think what we really want to know right now is, how are they going to sound? How do you do that?
So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, from the get-go, we've been working at it for a few years now. And when we started the project, again, with Pavel, we took a look at what we'd done before, and what was available in open world games in terms of vehicle sounds. And we decided, let's try and bring that one notch further. And going to next gen also, allowed us to be much more precise about what we were trying to do. So we implemented our in-house built granular synthesis engine, which basically takes a complete sweep of engine sounds and cuts it up in tiny fractions, and then reassembles it on the fly as you're driving, to be sure that you always get the proper rev sound that you're getting. So it's a bit tricky, and I guess I would need a lot of visual support to explain it properly. But it's a nice technological leap for us, and next gen has allowed us to make it work properly for our engines, but it also involves getting custom samples for our vehicles, which we were able to record. So the project was nice enough to send us on a lot of recording field trips, And Pavel has been instrumental in recording those vehicle sounds. And we got a lot of very cool vehicles. We got a Porsche, we got a Charger 69. We got a lot of amazing vehicles, a Malibu, Mercedes C63. We got a lot of very exclusive and exotic vehicles to record and get in the game. And we also got, my old Jetta.
Your personal car? You recorded your personal car that's going to be in the game?
It's the only thing I have left of that car. As I said, it's been a few years since I've been on this project. But yeah, it's in there because obviously, it's all... You can't just have sports car or muscle car, or else you're never gonna get the difference. So we get a lot of different traffic cars as well in there. But even if it's traffic car, it still sounds awesome because the mechanic and the technology behind it makes it super reactive and much more fun to drive than you would expect. And we're really happy about the system and how it's working out. We also recorded motorbikes, boats. We went all out.
Cool. That granular synthesis that you talked about, is this something that's new in video games, as far as you know?
No. I would say other games have used it before, but I don't think it's been done before in an open world context as we're doing it, or at least not when we started doing it. That's for sure. I haven't been keeping track of all the other guys what they're doing, but I'm sure we're all experimenting with the same things. I expect. But ours, we're really happy with the one we got because we built it in-house, and the guys from the technology group helped us get it to a super interesting level, when the results are really impressive.
Any big car buffs on your team, or is it all Jetta drivers?
I would say several. Isn't it our friend Tony who just came back from driving Lamborghinis around the track?
For his job, right? He needs to do it for work.
Sure, we all do.
Yeah, absolutely. You should all bring us to race tracks and have us
Dave
drive
and I are
fancy
going to
cars.
be, racing Ferraris right after this.
Yeah.
I think it was just a gift from his wife.
Yeah, it was a
To
gift.
just go driving.
But yeah, there's several, and it shows. It shows in the amount of detail we've put in there.
Cool. Great. Can't wait to try them all and hear them all, definitely. All right. Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, David. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kim. I hope you guys enjoyed our podcast with the sound team of Watch Dogs. If you have any questions or if you have any comments regarding this podcast, you can always hit us up on Facebook, on Twitter. We're all over the internet. You can easily find us. And that's it. Thanks a lot. See you guys later.